next guest is American science fiction author Hugh Howey. His first novel, called Wool, was serialized on multiple ebook platforms before it took off on Amazon. Hugh sold each installment for just 99 cents before landing a $500,000 print deal with a major publisher. 20th Century Fox has bought film rights, and out now is a prequel novel called Shift. By any measure, it's a meteoric rise that breaks all the old rules about how books should be published, and a giant leap for a guy who used to just work in a bookstore. Hello, Hugh. Welcome to Let's Talk. It's great to have you here.
It's great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Now, here you were just a very short time ago, just being a guy in a bookstore, and now here you are with, sort of multiple books to your credit, stuff online, real books in the hand, great big fat monsters, and more on the way. How the heck has this happened?
Honestly, I wish I knew. I would have done it earlier if I was a genius enough to coordinate this. It really just took one story that captured readers' imaginations and caused them to tell everyone they knew to pick up this book, and the demand and the sales were such that I had to quit my day job just to keep up with it all.
So what were you doing in a bookshop?
I was dusting shelves and stocking them, and
so were you the sort of guy who'd be putting a book on a shelf and thinking, "Wow, I reckon I could do that." Absolutely.
Yes. And then my lunch breaks and before work, I was just writing, and my colleagues, the people I worked with, of course, would think, "Yeah, it's cute that you're doing it, but you'll never make it." And I thought I would never make it as a writer. I did it because I loved it.
Yeah. Now, I understand you started off with putting small serialized versions of your big breakthrough book, which was called Wool. Yes. Yeah. On Amazon as for Kindle books as 99 cents, just little short pieces. Yes.
Yeah. It really this whole thing started with a short story that was 40 or 50 pages long. And I had no plans for the rest of the series. I just put this up there and went back to my novels. And the one book that I had no faith in and that I didn't promote took off. And so I started releasing the rest of the series.
So there are readers out there presumably scoping the net all the time, looking for just short stuff to read to start with. They're not looking for 100,000 words. They're looking for just a few pages to while away a short moment, are they?
Yeah, and there's all sorts of readers. What was nice about the digital editions is they didn't need to be a certain length to justify the print cost. The story could be just as long as it needed to be.
You can just upload it and hope for the best.
Yeah, exactly. Or upload it and forget it and move on to something else.
Right. Now let's talk about your big first breakthrough book, which was called Wool. Is called Wool. So what the premise for this is? Can you try and explain it? I mean, it's quite complicated, isn't it?
Well, everyone lives underground in this big silo. It's like a skyscraper, but twice as tall as the tallest skyscraper in the world, and so very deep.
And we're into a dark future for mankind.
Yeah,
America, I should
future,
say.
yeah.
It's very much an American story, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, except we've had like 27 countries pick it up, so it's appealed to editors and publishers worldwide. You don't have to even know where it's taking place in this first book, because the people don't know where they are or how they got there. They've been there for generations.
Right.
And it's this really human story about this woman from the depths of the silo, a mechanic, who gets the job of sheriff. And as she rises up and starts investigating the world around her, all the lies start to peel away like layers on an onion, and things really go downhill from there.
And when you say as she rises up, are you talking in terms of her job description, or do people in this dystopian, scary vision of yours start down at the bottom of the silo and work their way up to the earth, or the surface?
It's both. There's a literal interpretation as well. The upper class lives up top, and the middle class and the lower class. So yeah, there's a lot of commentary on the human condition built into the story. But the readership has been so wide. I have so many people who don't read science fiction who love this book because it's just a great character at the heart of it. It's similar to the Hunger Games in that there's no advanced technology. It's just I think a great thriller.
It's a real good action piece set in the future, which we can kind of imagine, though we hope it doesn't ever get there. And this book, Shift, is the prequel to it, which is just out in New Zealand now, isn't it?
Yeah.
So that fills in the whole backstory for Wool, does it?
It does. It also catches up to the events in Wool, but it's meant to be read afterward. It's a sequel.
I'm about this far through it at the moment. Yes, I'm almost finished. Yeah.
And I know people have read it in the other order, but I really recommend reading Wool first.
Yes.
The people who've read Wool have been dying for this and are now just waiting for the third one, which should be out in October.
Now, wool seems an odd name for a book, and I was looking at your website last night, and all, people are making all sorts of jokes about sheep and things
knitting
because
and,
you're coming to New Zealand. So, what does wool mean? Yes.
It has a couple of meanings. The figurative meaning is having the wool pulled over your eyes, so the idea of being misled or deceived, and it's kind of a hint on what the truth is in the story. The other is the literal, these wool pads they use to clean the censers when people are banished and sent outside to die.
Sensors, so what, these are lenses that people can look at them with, is that right?
Yeah, it's the only view they have of the outside world,
Yeah.
and it shows them a very bleak world. And so the idea is, like watching 24-hour news where they only show you bad events. Who wants to go see the world for themselves or to venture out if that's all they see?
From the outside looking into America, it looks like it's kind of turning in on itself a lot at the moment, and that its future is sort of, you know, especially with what happened in Boston and so many laws and the Patriot Act and all of those things which are making free American life harder and harder to come by. So are these stories of yours a bit symptomatic of this feeling of trepidation, do you think, about America's future?
I think, you know, I follow current events and world events closely, and I think this book has definitely been influenced by those circumstances. I was also writing this during the Arab Spring and during Occupation Wall Street, and all of that informs the writing. I also think it's the reason this book has been so addictive. Everyone I meet who reads this goes on to tell, you know, 10, a dozen other people. I even have met people who bought a dozen copies to give to friends and family because they feel like it's an important book to read, and I think it's because it resonates, and I think it resonates
we keep on seeing
worldwide.
these TV shows about people who are the preppers, or something, I can't quite remember, of people
Yeah.
who are preparing for the end times, and they're all building themselves caves and mountainsides stacked to the gills with guns and food. And
I'm not one of those people. I think I'm an optimist.
Yeah.
It's interesting that I write this stuff because I think the world will keep becoming better and better over time. We'll just have blips every now and then where things seem to be getting worse.
I found it very interesting that some of the characters in this book, even though they're operating in about the year 2347 or something, we're still using today's technology. But I guess, is that because the silos are presumably built around this time, and so hundreds of years in the future they're still clicking on mouses and flying drones and things?
Well,
is that how you've worked that?
the technology is kind of frozen from when the
Right.
when the time started. They don't have the resources or the leisure time to advance their technology very much.
But
And-
as a writer, that really works, doesn't it? Because if you were really writing about 300 years hence, if you come up with new technology, you'd have to be explaining it all the time, wouldn't you, for people who can't understand it.
And that's not the kind of science fiction I enjoy as a reader or enjoy writing. I want it to be accessible so anybody can jump in and just enjoy the character-driven story.
Yeah. Now, from the writer's point of view, I gather you took advantage of Kindle's program, which gives your book a bit of extra marketing push. Is that right? Could you explain that?
Well, when this came out, you could be in Kindle Select, which allows you to do a few free days where you give thousands of copies away, hoping that people will read it and enjoy it and look at your other works. And yeah, it certainly helped. Right now, I keep the first Wolf story free online permanently because I think people should be able to sample.
Right.
It's like going into a bookstore and you can read it. You can sit down in the cafe and read a chapter and decide if you want to spend your money on it.
So are you your own agent and your own manager and your own, I mean, it sounds like you're running this whole business empire at the same time as being the creator, is that right? Or
yeah, I have an agent now who does a lot for me, and now with Random House I have, you know, publicity and marketing and things you get from being with a publisher. But yeah,
which is very valuable.
I do a lot of work, but it's expected of all authors these days.
Yeah.
Very few people can get by just writing and handing the work over. You have to you have to engage with your readers, and you have to have a presence online.
Don't you? Yeah.
Absolutely.
How many emails a day are you getting?
A lot, yeah.
We had a guy.
And I still respond to all of them. So.
We had a guy the other day who said he's getting 1,000 a day, and it had just got too much for him to cope with. But
So you had to hire someone, or just
I don't know
ignore
quite
them?
how he coped with it.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're opening yourself up to an enormous audience, aren't you? Who probably want to know all about you all the time.
Yeah, and I'm happy to have that. You know, for years I wrote stories, put them out there, and never heard from anybody.
Yeah.
So this is I'll take this.
And so, having written Wool and Shift, what's coming up next? Last one, another book on the way?
Yeah, the third and final book in the series, Dust. It'll be out in October, so you won't have to wait interminably for the conclusion of the saga.
which is probably also great for readers who are used to waiting years for people to finish things.
Exactly.
Thank you, Hugh, very much indeed.
Thank you for having me on.